Welcome back, everyone. We are in Eugene, Oregon today, and we are kicking off our month on the economy, taking a much broader view than just looking at the numbers. So I've almost come up with the tagline, Beyond the Numbers, and really getting at how does the economy work for each of us. One of the areas, especially as I've been going around the country living in an RV, is that it enables you when you have a home or a dwelling that is movable or not, that is less expensive because then your burden is much less. The caretaking requirements are substantially reduced, and your ability to go and do what you love and what you're interested in increases. When you get to choose a job because you're interested in it, instead of because it is the difference between eating, healthcare, and the basic necessities, stress changes, health improves, your quality of life improves. And so that's why I was really excited when I got here. And we met last night talking about micro dwellings. And if you haven't learned about them, well, today's going to be a little bit of a precursor and give us some foundation. So I'll pass it to you. Tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, how you got to this space, and kind of what you've learned, because you've been looking at this for a while.
I have been. Well, I'm Sherry Schultz, and we're in Eugene, Oregon, and I live in microhousing, which I think is generally defined as under 400 square feet. And it can take a lot of different forms. It can take sharing a group house, living in an RV, which we have some folks who do that in our group. Living in individual micro studios, which is what we do here, and a lot of other different things that I probably don't remember. And I founded a group in Eugene called Springfield Eugene Micro Dwellers, which is about basically spreading the news about this form of living, because it's much more common in Europe. It's getting started here. It's maybe about 5 years in larger cities, but a lot of medium-sized cities don't have any. So, and this place that I live in describes itself as a privately run dorm and is mainly for students, but they allow non-students to live here. And we have an all-inclusive rent that in our case includes meals as well as utilities, Wi-Fi. We get a little monthly housekeeping. So basically your needs are all taken care of for a relatively low rate. It's actually just above the median rent in Eugene. We get all of our needs taken care of. We have a single owner developer who is really mission driven, who wanted to provide a place where primarily students could focus on their work, which is their passion, and not have to worry about any of the other things, even down to he provides the laundry supplies in the laundry room, so we don't have to go out and buy big bottles of detergent and bleach and all that. It's all there for us. So it makes it very easy to live without a car, which is also a huge savings and also really important to our plan. So, and obviously we are not using as much energy in all sorts of different ways as the average American. So I really believe that it's not for everybody, but it could be for a lot of people.
For a lot of people.
And it would be so beneficial to people individually and to our planet and everything. Everything.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've talked about is that we often refer to this as affordable housing, but my head goes to immediately, as you're talking, number one, to people, young people who are starting out. I have 2 college students who are constantly asking, what options do we have? And my oldest child is a musician. And I wouldn't say housekeeping is going to be high on his list, and I mean that in total.
Yeah.
So something where there's an option such as this that takes care of all of those necessities sounds great. That said, complete opposite end of the spectrum. My husband isn't into housekeeping either. And he travels full time. And now here I am traveling around the country. Our ability, or frankly, let me rephrase that. our interest in taking care of all these day-to-day activities in the upkeep of a large home is dwindling substantially. We are much more interested in traveling. We're much more interested in having a small footprint. We're much more interested in spending time with our daughter and doing those things that we enjoy. But we have a pool that we have to fix, or we have a fence that starts to fall down, or we have an AC. There's a lot. Making sure we have all the food and it just adds up so quickly that I think this is beyond affordable housing, and it's more about lifestyle choosing.
Yes, it is. There's also sort of a parallel movement industry called co-living, which is the idea that you have some small individual private space and then you have communal shared spaces, because my argument is you don't need your own washer and dryer. about 50 people live here, so we don't each have to buy a washer dryer. We don't have to buy a fridge. We don't have to. Our units are furnished, which some micro housing is furnished, some is not. But it is just it's just a tremendous saving of time and energy, so that you can put it toward what you really want to be doing, which in my case is editing books as a freelancer, not a hugely high-paid profession, but one that I really love, which is my passion, and also now doing community organizing around passionate housing, I guess. I don't want to say affordable housing anymore.
Yeah, I like that.
Passion-filled housing.
Yeah. Well, and you said something really important. It's not just about the money, it's about the energy.
Yeah.
So one of my interviews during our healthcare month was with a gentleman who's written a book called The Blue Mind. And he's a marine biologist who also does a lot of work in neurology. And his point was, the more time you spend in nature and around calming spaces like water, the stronger, healthier your body is. There's a direct correlation and benefit to the way that you live. What was interesting, because that was not shocking, but it's always good to have the proof. What was interesting on his point was, how do we put this measurement of importance into policy?
Yeah.
In other words, it's not just about the money. It's not just about saying we have this environmentally friendly spaces. It's that we actually improve the wellness of our people, which is a tangible benefit, and recognize it in policy. What you just described is a tangible energy benefit, to my mind, similar to what he was saying. But we never talk about that. We never talk about how much it frees up your life to do other things. And we don't talk about it in policy or government either.
Right.
But what an interesting twist.
Yeah. Well, I hope that this way of living, and I forgot to mention tiny houses, which are actually the form of microdwelling that most people are probably most familiar with now. There's even TV shows about them. So,
but they're larger, correct?
Well, no.
Or is there a distinction?
They're under 400 as well.
Oh, they are.
Most of them are, between 160 and. Actually no one. A person here who lives in an 84 square foot tiny home in a backyard. I think she must use some facilities of the house. I'm not sure. But they can be very small.
Yes.
And obviously, there are small. There are ADUs which are in the backyard, which can be 600 to 800 square feet. So that I
What's an ADU?
An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. And if it was housing month, we could talk about housing policy and how currently in most cities about 70% of the land is zoned for single families, homes only. And a lot of cities have made it very difficult to build even an ADU in the backyard. So if you wanted to build a tiny house in the backyard and rent it out to someone who needs a less expensive place to live, or if you want your mother-in-law to be able to live there, etc., it can be very expensive. And we're trying to work with the city of Eugene now to make them understand this, and that it is a good thing to allow people to not put a lot of barriers and restrictions and costs to people who want to do that. Our sister city of Springfield, or our adjacent city, has waived all of the fees around ADUs through, I believe, June, and possibly they will extend that. But we really applaud that, and we would like to see that here. And so it's very much. I mean, there are a lot of forces, that are pushing for this kind of living. But the American dream, held by a lot of people, especially older people, is all about a single-family house with a yard and a fence that keeps out your neighbors. And I think that young people and some younger spirited older people are knowing that that isn't a psychically healthy way to live or a rewarding way to live. We want to be in more of a community, and I'm sure you know about social isolation and what a big problem that is. Well, when you live in a situation like this, you can choose to be in your room, or you can choose to come out and watch the news or the game, or the HG, the house,
Home and garden.
the brain candy, whatever, whatever you need. You can go back and forth, and I just think it's the way that I've always wanted to live, but I never thought that you could do that without being either a college student or a senior citizen in assisted living.
Yeah.
So, and I actually was a homeowner, a condo owner in Seattle, and that city came to be very expensive, and I specifically moved back to Eugene, which is where I went to college, because I found out about this place and searching for where to go, that in a place that would allow me to live and do what I want to do and not have to spend all my time making a lot of money to pay the rent, the mortgage or whatever it was.
When we started this journey, some of my teammates and I, we started really at the foundation of where is our country going? Who is it that we want to be? How are we evolving? And asking hard questions. And sometimes we decided we like it the way it is, and sometimes we decided we need to have a change and there is a solution available, and sometimes we found holes. One of the things that we really wanted to change the wording on was American Dream to American Experience, with the premise that a dream is a singular goal that pretty much, I'm pretty sure if we polled everybody in the country, they'd all say the same thing, right? You enumerated it. It's a house, it's a spouse, it's a dog, 2.5 children, a fence, and a car or two. And we thought, but is that our country anymore?
Probably meat at every meal, too. I don't know if we want to get into that. That would be a different month.
Well, the point, though, is that everybody is so different.
Yeah.
And so maybe it isn't the case that we want to have a standard goal. Maybe what it is that we really want to be who we are, but have the freedom and capability to do that. And this experience piece also gets at, as I often say, automation shouldn't be there to help you cross the days. It's not how many days you live, it's how you live it. And so you need those opportunities, and if you're spending every minute trying to earn enough money to purchase this home, to make this dream that someone else had,
right, that you never get to spend any time in because you're always at work.
That's right. And is that really who we want to be as a nation?
Right.
Every indicator is saying we don't.
Right.
And that it's problematic for us. So we have to start thinking outside the box, although I don't think everybody goes to, how do I change my living scenario? So this kind of segues into the next question. I know you've done some research on, as you mentioned, you were in Seattle, you had to come all the way to Eugene in order to make this happen.
Yeah.
Where else in the country is it happening or not?
Well, that's a big question. There are, especially in larger cities, this way of living is becoming more well known, and sort of associated forms too that make it easier for you to find. Like a gentleman last night, we had a happy hour gathering for microdwellers, and a gentleman was telling me that his son, college-age son, is in Boston. And the dorms, if he had lived in the dorms, it would have been $1,500 a month just for living, not even for food. Yeah. So he, this was at the Berkeley School of Music, if you want to name names. Anyway, Instead he used a site called Nesterly, which matches older. It looks like older people who have homes and they want a person to live in them. And so I don't know if the rent is affordable or exchanged for chores or whatever. I didn't totally look into it, but that's a wonderful service, and that's just in Boston right now. And I don't know if they plan to expand, but most of these kinds of apps are in like one. They start in one city, obviously, and then hopefully they will expand. There's something called the New York Foundation for Senior Citizens that I believe does a similar thing in New York, matching an older person who has a home with a younger person who needs an affordable place to stay. But in terms of microhousing, like there's actually in Seattle now, there's a place called The Roost, which is for artists specifically, and it is a similar concept here. Small units, like I'm trying to remember. I know the top was about 225 square feet, I think, and then common kitchen, dining room, other common spaces, and then there's an arts nonprofit on the ground level. So there's so many different ways of taking this concept and adapting it to different audiences or markets. I am excited to see that sort of thing. The path breakers, it's always harder for them. We all know what an apartment building is, a standard apartment building.
Right,
no one
sure.
has to explain that concept. But whenever microhousing is built, they usually have to work with the neighborhood, and they have to, they have to, possibly convince the planning commission of what they're doing and that it's legitimate. I called the rental company, management company for The Roost, and I asked her. They have a whole bunch of different properties, including The Roost, and I said, "Which of these are microhousing?" She didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of education around. We have not. I guess we've been so affluent in this country that we have thought that everyone would be able to own a home, and it's taken us a long time to figure out that may not be attainable or desirable for a lot of people, and there need to be these other kinds of solutions. But the easiest way is there's a site, I believe it's coliving.com, and it is just a database of all these different properties. So you can go there and look and say, I want to live in Chicago, and it'll show you what the sort of co-living communities are there, and I think who has an opening. And it's around the world too. So I was looking at Paris.
Wow, yeah.
And some of these places you can stay for as little as a week or a month or open-ended, whatever. So it's a whole new world out there.
It really is
But
a whole new world.
U.S. is catching up. But if you go to San Francisco, you can find a whole bunch of places like this. Seattle also has a brand called Apartments, which were the first big micro studio company, and they actually have 22 buildings now in Seattle that are micro studios. And because that housing market is so expensive, the individual rents, maybe still look expensive to people who are in smaller places, but they're much less than you would have to pay for a traditional apartment in those cities.
Well, and then you don't have to travel in, right? So I had a girlfriend who lived in D.C., and I'm guessing her space was a studio, and I know it was about $350,000, and it was probably 150 square feet. Maybe 200, and I was I was floored, right? I walk in and I'm going, I can touch the couch, the bed, the stove all at the same time. And it costs how much?
Yeah, but that's a lot less than that market.
Well, then
Yes,
than anything
so
else would cost. And the benefit really was the fact that you didn't have to drive in. Because that's the other piece I've experienced when I lived up there during the summers while I was working for the Pentagon. It could take me 4 hours to get in, and you'd have. I mean, now that would be a long day, but a short day would still be an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is you had no idea which one it was going to be, so you couldn't plan a meeting, you couldn't plan your evening, you couldn't remember to pick up, you couldn't manage to guarantee you could pick up your children on time. I mean, it just totally changes your life when you can be walking distance from where you need to be. And I then understood why she was willing to pay more to be in a good location, and can then extrapolate how do these other cities, same problem. Seattle, certainly we experience some impressive traffic, and LA, and many Atlanta makes my head spin at times. So I can definitely see where this is going to go. But I imagine there are a number of people, especially those who have owned homes for a long time, who cannot fathom living in less than 400 square feet.
Right.
So I understand we could go up and see your space. So I think we'd like to go ahead and go do that to help people have a better visual, because
absolutely.
I think they imagine
it's almost
the size of some people's bedrooms.
Yeah, it's almost so. I don't know. You might want to put the tour ahead of the interview, because you sort of have to. Yeah, I mean, people definitely have a view maybe in their heads of what that is, or they don't have a view at all. Actually, I didn't know. I had not seen the space except online, and before I came, and so I was trying to downsize just from 650 square feet, and thinking, how much can I fit? And it actually turned out I could fit a lot. I could fit things that I didn't bring. The actual problem ended up being that we couldn't fit a lot of stuff in the car, so it was actually a multi-month. There was a storage unit involved and multiple trips.
Oh, that's a frustration.
Yeah, which I wouldn't have done it. I would have just gotten a moving van. But I was like, I can move in a car. No, I couldn't quite do that.
No, not quite.
But, if it's people, once I had the goal of I want to live affordably and not be on the street, then it makes it a lot easier to look at yourself and say, what is really important to me and what is not. And it's still a process. I'm still going through things. I still have a couple shelves of things to give away to people, and I'm constantly like, well, I didn't wear those clothes at all this year, and so they're at the back, and maybe in a year or two I'll give them away. I have several shelves of, give this away if you don't need this anymore.
Well, that's it. It's a cleaner life as well. Yeah. So before I came on this trip, I spent approximately 2 years downsizing my stuff. I took all 40-year plus. I'm well over 40 now. I'm a middle-aged woman. I try to say that. I don't know if I'm.
I don't know. You're
mentally there, but I'm definitely age-wise.
I think not to 50. Are you? My dad lived to be 93.
Oh goodness!
And he could have probably lived longer.
Yeah. Well, and we probably will be.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, well over 40 years of memorabilia, all of my 4 children's memorabilia, and decades of paperwork. I digitized all of it.
Yeah,
all the pictures went, everything. I have one box, small, for each kid. They each are getting a photo album, which is flat.
Cool.
I get a copy, they get a copy. That's it. And you can see their memorabilia far easier in that anyway. I have enough clothing to fit for 6 months in the RV, which fits no problem. A couple of pairs of shoes, and I am relatively burden-free at this point. I cannot tell you how amazing it is to do that. And so many people have said, I don't know if I could do it. I said, you can do it. And the feeling of freedom, it's not quantifiable.
Right.
It is really amazing. And so I don't know how many square feet my RV is, but I can say we've had, because my older children are adults, So 4 adults and my 8-year-old, and we all had our own bunks. We
Mm.
all had our own drawers and space, and it was tight. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. That many adults in a space is tough, but we did it.
Right.
And certainly, if they were not living there full time, which they don't, then it's totally fine. It's, hey, everybody's got a space when you're here,
Right.
and I don't have to pay for maintaining spaces you're not using
Right.
when you're not. So
Right. Absolutely.
everybody wins.
Yeah, there's so many ways now. I mean, if I need to, I used to think, oh, it's nice to have a guest room. It would be nice to have a guest room or something. But now that Airbnb is existing, I have a friend in the next block who has an Airbnb that she rents out for $60 a night. So if I ever wanted to be generous and, host someone there, I could do that very easily without having the room, all the
Yeah.
year, paying for the room all the year. All sorts of things like that.
I love it.
So many things, Uber and Lyft make it really easy to live without a car. There's just so many things now, and I think that maybe people are older, maybe don't completely know that all these things are here, and you don't have to live in that older way if you don't want to.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying that everyone should live this way. I'm saying that everyone should know that this is a way that you can live and live really well.
Perfect. Well, let's go see this place.
Okay.